There you are. Hello, governor. So, I wanted to make a short little video. I have a mystery to solve, and let's see if you guys can help me solve it. It's unsolvable, but we can try. So, the other night, I'm at the bar, and the waitress comes up to me. I'm just watching my friends play pool, and this waitress comes up, and she's like, "Hey, there's a lady, she bought you a beer, but she doesn't want me to tell you who it is. She just said, hey, buy that person a beer." And at the time, I'm with my buddy, and he immediately looks at her and he's like, "Who is it?" And he was like being playful, like funny. It wasn't mean. Like, what the hell? But he was like, "Who is it? Come on, tell me. And he like follows his waitress around hounding her. And she looks at him, she goes, like, "Your friend doesn't even care." Eventually, this was like after like an hour. She's like, "Your friend doesn't even care." And she was just laughing. And so anyway, I'm trying to, I'm like, whatever. But I am a little curious as to who sent me a beer. And the way I see it, there's 3 possible people it could be. And I'll start with the least likely first. And then I'll go with my second choice and my first pick. And the least likely is there's a group of friends that showed up. And it was all guys and girls. And out of that group, they would tell me if they bought me a beer. They wouldn't be like buying secret. And there's friends at that table where we go back and forth whenever we go out. Like I'll come up and be like, "Oh, here's your beer." And they'll be like, "Oh." And all of a sudden I'll be sitting there and they'll bring me one later. And I was like, "Hey, did you guys do that?" And they're like, "No, it wasn't me." I'm like, honest. So that's the least likely culprit. Culprit number 2 is there is a gas station attendant that I saw earlier that night. I filled up and I walk in and she was there. And the dynamic I have with this lady is like, it's weird as hell. I walk in and she's like the friendliest lady, like an older lady, like, I don't know, semi-older. She's not old by any means, probably like late 40s, early 50s, early 60s, if she's really good at makeup. But anyways, the dynamic is she's super friendly, and then whenever I get in line, she's like, "Oh, like, hi, like, thank you for whoever customer, okay, bye." Yes. What do you want? And I'm like, Snickers? And, it's kind of weird, but I'm always like, "Oh, I'm gonna win this lady over." So I'm constantly, just like, "Oh, hey, how's your day?" Just happy all the time, but I don't know this lady at all. Like, I've only been in there 2, maybe 3 times. So, and she was at the, like, once I, like, kind of started looking around, I noticed, I was like, "Hey, that's that lady." And I was in the gas station 2 hours before, maybe 4 hours before this happened. I went to a party before I came here. So I was like, "Oh, that's the lady from the gas station." Like, that's it's number 2, that's runner up. And the funny thing is, Nick was still going after the waitress, and I was like, kind of trying to tell him, like, I had suspicions on who it could be, but I was like, I'm not gonna tell you. because I didn't want him to run over to the gas station attendant and be like, "Did you buy my friend a beer?" I was like, "Oh, I'll tell you later when we get home." So that's runner-up number 2. So we got my friend, we got the angry gas station attendant, and now we have the number 1 candidate, but I still have reason to believe that it wasn't her. So this one's a little messed up. So the way the bar's set up is like there's like rectangular floor space, and this is where all the tables are, and the door where you walk in, and that's where the bar is. And then when you get to the end of the back wall of the building, you have a giant dance floor, and then you have the back wall of the building is the men's and ladies' restroom. And then to the right of the dance floor is a little room that's one step up. It's this tiny room, and it's almost like the building's a rectangle. Like this room would be the L off the end of the rectangle. And it's just enough room for a pool table and a couple bar stools. And you can kind of sit at like just this table that overlooks the dance floor. And then everyone plays pool. So my buddy, he's a nice guy. I'm getting to know him more. I'm hanging out around this guy more. But he's in there with his girlfriend. And the buddy that I came with, who is good buddies with this guy and knows him, he goes in there and they're playing pool. So I walked away from my friend's group, suspect number 3, and I go in here to sit and watch pool, and I sit next to this kid's girlfriend. And I'm just like, whatever, I've met her in the past. I know my brother had something going with one of her friends. And they didn't date, but they were hanging around each other. I don't know. So she's come over to my house before. So anyways, I sit next to her, but you can't guess who the suspect is. And, we're there forever, and I didn't talk much. Oh, isn't that rain? Shh. Can you hear that? I don't know if you can pick that up on here. Pretty loud though. Anyway, so I'm sitting there watching them play pool, sitting next to this girl, not talking. And I mean, being polite, but I'm joking around with the guys more than I'm talking to her. And so she gets up, and he gets up, and I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if they were going out to smoke, but they get up and leave every now and then. So they leave, and that's when the waitress comes up. Well, it's just me and my buddy sitting there, and the waitress comes up, and she's like, here's a beer. Someone bought you it. They don't want me to tell you who it was. And I was like, okay. And so everyone comes back, and we're going on with the night. And this girl sits down next to me, and she keeps going, like, I'm sitting next to her here, and she keeps turning, and she's like playing with her phone, and all of a sudden I feel her, she bumps my side, but then she bumps my side and starts going like this, like on my back, like against my ribs. And like I look to see, like, are you the most blind person ever reaching for your phone? And like her phone was 3 feet away. And I just kind of like looked forward and was like, ignore it, like, oh, that kind of feels good, but that's my buddy's girlfriend, and I don't want anything to do with that. And I ignored it, like, I did not acknowledge it at all. And, I mean, in my head, I was like, oh, that felt good, but I'm not gonna acknowledge it. And so that was the last thing she did, and the rest of the night she was all over her boyfriend. And I was like, good. But that puts her at suspect spot number 1, because she's doing suspect things, i.e. touching me and rubbing me. So that is how she takes the number one spot. If it isn't her, then it's someone random, and there weren't that many people there. The other thing was, we're on the ride home, and we're in the car and we're driving. And you know, there's a group of us, we carpooled, got the DD, and so we're going on the ride home, and I'm going like, once we get in there, I'm like, tell them what happened. Like, they all knew someone bought me a beer, where I was like, you know, our friend's girlfriend was rubbing my side, like, I don't know, like, you think she bought me a beer? And they're all like, no, absolutely not. That's not this girl's thing. Like, they're like, we completely believe she'd rub your side. Like, they're like, yeah, like, that's just, you know, that's something she'd do. And the one kid, he's like, yeah, like, I was sitting there, and she turned and she sat on my lap. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys are friends. You all hang out more. I don't really necessarily know you guys. Like she could be flirting with you and sit on your lap. But as friends, like, joking around wise, like, this wasn't that kind of a thing. Like, this was a completely, whereas, like, my ignoring it in silence is probably taking it as, like, you're making me uncomfortable right now. Which was good if she took it that way. I hope she took it that way. Inside, I was really like, what the shit? This kind of feels good, but what the shit? But they're like, yeah, but so she'll do that kind of stuff, but like, she wouldn't buy anyone a beer. Like, even if she liked you and she was single, she wouldn't buy a beer. They're like, she's just, that's not how she is. And I was like, still suspect number one. But there's always the gas station attendant. I don't know. Hard to say. Well, now you can stew on it forever like me too. All I know is, I had a pretty good time. What'd you guys do? Who do you think it is? 1, 2, or 3?